Welcome to Women Are Rising with your host, Katie Kozlowski. This is the podcast where we come together and we bust the myths. We turn things upside down and we get to the heart of the matter. Women Are Rising is dedicated to bringing truths to the forefront and liberating souls from the inside out. Without further ado, here's Katie K and Women Are Rising. Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of Women Are Rising. I'm here with Johanna Burkhardt, and we are having another one of these super raw, super authentic conversations about more of those juicy topics that we go through, that we experience in what we call life. So we're going to journey around and just get a look at some of these buzzwords that we often sort of sweep under the rug, and hear Johanna's story of a couple of things that happened in her life that are pretty amazing. So welcome, Johanna. I'm so happy that you're joining me for this episode of Women Are Rising. And the first thing I want to ask you is, I put a call out to women saying, who has a story to share? Why do you want to share it? And all that good stuff. And I had all these people respond, and you responded. And can you just share a little bit about why this is important to you, or what inspired you to join this message, this call for Women Are Rising, and a little bit about your background or what brought you here?
Yes. Thank you for having me. When I saw the call out, I was like so excited. I was like, yes, because this, my end game, my end goal is to just share my story and help women realize that there is a way out, that there is a better way to live your life, that things that happen to us aren't to us, they're for us, and we need these things. And that no matter how bad it looks on the outside, there's light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to have faith and believe it and ride the wave to get through it.
Yeah. And that's been my motto. That's one of the, sometimes I can't speak. I get excited and then I'm like, one of the reasons why I started this is because that's my mission too. And I just felt like there's so many people out there talking about point A, like, oh, it's really bad. We know it's really bad. And point B, which is the light at the end of the tunnel. But we don't really hear about kind of what happened in between.
Yeah.
What happens in the gap? Like, what happens in the space between point A and point B? And also, I think that one of the things that's going to help us do this collectively is to actually tell the stories, because a lot of times people look at me and they say, oh, she's got it all together. Oh, she's so happy. She's so carefree and perfect. And I'm like, oh,
if you only knew, right?
Half of it. I'm a happy person, but there's like a whole other world happening inside me, and there's experiences and there's stories, and it looks kind of like this thing of like, if I tell people my story, am I a victim? Am I looking for sympathy, or am I doing it because I'm showing you the raft?
Yeah.
Like, this is the raft, get on it. This is the boat that takes you from hell to heaven, or from dark to light, or, you've got to go from point A to point B. And that at some point it's kind of like, there you are, everything's great. And then something happens and you collapse and you rupture, or you shatter, or you fall apart, and you descend into that pit, and then you come back. Yeah. So
I got all kinds on that.
Yeah. So like, and I know you do, and I don't want to give it away by saying by telling too much. So I know that you had a health experience, and you dealt with having a lot of alcoholism in your life. And I want to start with the alcoholic father, right? It's an alcoholic father.
Yes.
Because that's something that I witnessed a lot of alcoholism in my life, in my childhood, and extreme experiences with suicide and all of these things. And I'm curious, can you speak about that? Like, what was it like as a child? And how did you find that when you grew up? Like, what were the residuals? It's kind of like the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the muck that came with it. Can you share a little?
So he wasn't always that way. When I was really young, he didn't have, I mean, he had other problems, but alcohol wasn't the main issue at the time. But when life got bad for him is when I noticed, when life got bad for all of us in my home, that's when he turned to alcohol. And he disconnected from the family. He disconnected from me, who I was raised by him up till the age of 12, pretty much just me and him, so we had a very strong connection. And he completely disconnected and just started numbing himself, which I know now is what he was doing. He was just numbing himself in the moment because he didn't know what to do. And he was afraid to take action and better our life and get us out of that situation. And so instead, he chose the easy way out. He numbed himself and pretty much drank himself literally to death. I mean, I watched him die because he was an alcoholic and he was only 56 years old.
Wow.
So it was traumatic to see that as a child. But now what I know is that as I watched my own journey and I look back at all that I went through, I was always told as a young child to, even as a young adult, stop crying, put your big girl pants on, push it down, get over it, be strong, whatever. And so all the bad things that happened in my life, everything that came about was like, oh, nope, I can't get upset. I can't cry. I can't have a breakdown. I got to be the rock. And I was for my family, always the rock for my family. And so I spent a good part of my life just packing that stuff in my body and holding on to it and moving on. And so the only thing I knew to do, because I watched it, was to drink myself. So when stuff got bad, what do you think? That's what I went. I was like, well, this is what he did. So I drank and I numbed it away for years. I numbed it away and thought my life was great. I'm just going through the motions, but it wasn't. It wasn't at all. And so that turning point of seeing him in liver failure, seeing him die, and having no control over it. My whole life I've spent trying to control my situation, control my emotions, control my environment. I had no control on this one at all. So I went into extreme anxiety over the fact that I couldn't control it. And which spiraled into a massive depression, and during that time, I was doing just the same thing that was killing him. I was just numbing it because I didn't know what else to do.
Right.
And you just carry that forth. I mean, what you see, these patterns that we see, especially from addictive people, especially from addictive parents, I mean, it just kind of, we set the example, so it's just, you can break the cycle. You can totally break the cycle.
Mm-hmm. And that's such a powerful statement, right? That breaking the cycle. And I know because it's something that came through my family too, is fascinating because I've had all of these experiences and I've been in all these sides and I know the alcoholism and I know the suicide and I know the abuse and I know all of these experiences that, one of the reasons why I was like, well, we got to start talking about this stuff is because I know that I have this arsenal of experiences and I witnessed exactly what you're talking about in my own life and in my own family. And it's such a heartbreaking thing. And yet at the same time, it's like, okay, so this is what I inherited, right? Like This is what my life is. Either I face it and then I honor it and I break the cycle and I do the work and I put the time in, or I don't and I go, everything's fine. And you soldier on and you carry it with you. But in the space between those points of like, it's happening and you're going to make a choice and the future is going to be what the future is going to be, right? Point B is like, either you break the cycle and you change or you keep your blinders on and you don't.
Yeah.
Is the place where all the stuff happens, right? And my question for you is, as someone who grew up having that, how did you feel, or how did you deal with the sort of and I think you mentioned this when you when you answered my questions about why you'd want to do this conversation in the first place is the anger, right? The resentment, the shame, because I don't know about you, but for me, a lot of times I looked at other people and I said, gee, like they didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
They had parents that like loved them, that were accessible. Now my parents were not the ones that were the alcoholics. It was the grandparents and the uncles and the everyone but my parents. But I still it was still in my house, and I still witnessed it, and it still affected me. So what can you share, or like what can you speak to about when that's in your life, and not like being mad and being like, damn you, God, like my life sucked. I didn't have parents that took care of me. Like, how did you deal with that?
Well, gosh.
And if you don't know, that's okay too.
You don't, in the moment, in the time, you don't deal with it, because I was like that in the beginning. Most of my adult life, I spent taking care of my father. Even when he was alive, he used to call me his secretary, because I handled every part of his life. I was an enabler of his behavior. And I did, even though I loved him, and he was, and will still be always the greatest man in the world to me, and was the best man aside from his illness and his addiction, was that I put my life aside for him always. And so there was a ton of resentment. There was a ton of anger, and like, why didn't you change? Why didn't you do these things? And when he died, I was pissed off that he died. I was like, why couldn't you, why, I moved from coast to coast thinking I can escape this. I can run from it. I can hide from it and not be his enabler anymore and have my own life. And the truth of the matter is, you can never run from your problems. They will hunt you down and find you and smack you in the face. And they did. They did. And, he just said, well, she's not here, so I'm going to hide it from her. So I had no idea he was dying. I had no idea he was that sick. So when that came about, it was too late for me to save him, or in my thoughts that, I thought I could save him, and I couldn't. He was way beyond. And so I was pissed off at that too. But here's the difference is I wasn't expressing my emotion. I wasn't telling him I was pissed off. I wasn't telling the world I was pissed off. Well, my husband probably knew, but that's about it. I didn't express and expel the emotion from my body, from my mind, from my heart. And I just pent it all up. And that is the most dangerous thing you can do. It's okay to be upset. Right. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be emotional about the circumstances of growing up. But the way to get out of that, the way to move past it, is totally radical forgiveness. It's complete and utter radical forgiveness. And realizing that they were doing the best that they could at that moment in their situation, that they knew how to do, right or wrong. That's what they did. And that has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with who I am or where I am. I can choose to repeat that and live in a life of anger and resentment and sad and be angry with God and the universe for this. Or I can choose to forgive and say, okay, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to live my life like that. I've spent 30 some odd years holding this crap in and having severe backaches and anxiety and depression and headaches, because guess what? I was holding all this crap in my body, right, and I didn't want it. I mean, my anxiety and control led me to half my body going into paralysis and then diagnosing me with a stroke. That wasn't a stroke, gave me a medicine that could have killed me. I literally 3 days after my wedding had a 50-50 shot of dying from taking a medicine that would bring half my body back. And 3 days in ICU, and still I hadn't woke up yet.
Right. Can I ask you, this is for my own sort of fun and giggles. Which side was it?
It was my left side.
Your left side. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I'm just asking because, we have the two sides of the body. We have the masculine and the feminine, and the giving and the receiving. And I was curious if it was the giving or the receiving that went numb, and it was the receiving. Because I work with energy and I look at the spiritual. It's interesting because I know that we have, my dog really likes this conversation. I'm going to let him come in. I'm like,
oh, I'm a huge animal person. I'm not surprised.
Well, okay. At some point, you will see Archimedes today. Maybe, maybe not. Hi, buddy. He's like, he's my assistant. Sometimes he likes to help, and sometimes he doesn't. Apparently, he wanted to come in, but I asked about that because that's one of the commonalities I hear so often is like my body, right? I have body aches. I have this, I have that, and the packing it on, and that we are like storehouses of emotion, and that we do keep it inside. And so there's all of these layers of what happens, and why it's so important, but also kind of like and you said like the radical forgiveness, and I don't know why I'm sharing this in this particular time, but one of the things that I experienced is I have tons of friends that do healing modalities and all of this stuff. And I went to this one particular woman recently that does something called havening. And havening has to do with stroking, actually physically stroking the body and stroking the meridian or the points, certain points. And I found that it was the most, for me, profoundly healing experience because it was the radical forgiveness of the body. And I was literally saying, like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. And forgiving my own body because I stored so much in it. I don't know why I'm sharing that today on this particular conversation, except that, you're talking about how you stored it all inside. And we're looking at, okay, so how do you forgive yourself for all of that? Because I know what that feels like too. And it's like, there's so much, there's shame.
Oh, there's a lot of shame. And
in the first place, right?
I still deal with shame. Once I went through the majority, because you're always on a healing journey, majority of the healing work, and stepped up into this platform of speaking my truth and really just trying to shed that light. I all of a sudden was afraid of being seen because had this huge shame of even going on Facebook Live, because I was like, I know there's thousands of people watching this and I don't want them to see me, because growing up, I always wanted to be under the radar. I didn't want anybody to see how I lived or who my parents were or what my life was, because I made sure on the outside it looked all nice and pretty. Nobody, like, everybody just see the outside. It's pretty. Don't come too close, because then you'll see the truth. And
don't open the box, right? Don't open the pages of my journal.
Even though I'm not ashamed of my current life and my situation, I felt that come back in, and it was almost paralyzing. And I was like, no, you are not going back down that road. It's not happening.
Right. So how did you, and I can completely identify with that. One of the things that, I keep talking about this lately, because part of my background is I come from, I'm an actress by trade. And so I have done a lot of storytelling in the past, and my throat has something to say about your episode. And you're wearing blue, which is the throat chakra. So sometimes things get cleared. I'm like clearing things as we speak. I have to have my little blue ring on, but,
honey, I'm crystal packed.
Exactly. It's just a little visitor from the past chilling in my throat. But I've been watching Transparent, which is a series about this particular family. And you see, right, the reality. And I've been fascinated with this lately because I've been so interested in the fact that we've seen this surge of television that sort of tells it like it is.
Yeah.
And you see sort of like the messy undertone of what a real family looks like. And when you watch it, you kind of cringe. And I felt this way about girls too, but like you kind of cringe and you're like, ooh, oh my God, like I can't believe they're doing that, or I can't believe they're saying that, or I can't believe that that's happening, or like, oh, those people are horrible. Well, how embarrassing. And then I go, but you know what? Like that's reality. Like that's truth. And there's something to be said for the resonance of truth. Mm-hmm. And of course now my throat's clear, but the fact that we're so afraid to be like, this happened to me. And the fact that somehow we think that that's going to bring us down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's the fear of judgment. It's the fear of other people judging you, not wanting you, not accepting you,
Right.
and that carries on from stuff I experienced as a child that, still gets to be worked on. And people think that you can take this magic pill or do this one exercise or this one thing and they're all going to be better. No, honey, it's the journey. It's the work. It's this, that's what, I was saying that the stroke and the paralysis and the 3 days in the hospital didn't wake me up, because it didn't.
Right.
Like it took more than that. I had to go through the darkest of dark so that I could wake up. I was on the brink of suicide. So depressed.
You're the second person who's talked about being on the brink of suicide. And I also was on the brink of suicide. And thank you for saying that. I'm going to let you talk in 1 second. I'm sorry I sort of jumped in there, but
No.
I want to kind of interject this because it's really important. There are far too many people that get to the brink of suicide.
Yes.
Far too many. I think it's far more, I'm willing to bet that, like, this is a radical number, but like 96% of people on this planet at some point get to that point. Like, I think it's that common.
Oh yeah. I mean, for sure. And I don't want to blame people, but I can tell you from my own experience that the doctors and the drug companies did not help me whatsoever. In fact, my doctor fired me when I decided to wean myself off of all of these drugs, because, they thought that I knew better. And I said, you're damn right. I knew better. I know my body and these chemicals and these additives. Now, there is times where people need that, and I'm not saying they don't, but for me, I was just being pumped with different medications that were doing nothing but continuing to numb me out. And so that moment of darkness, I was on a lot of these medications. And when that moment hit with a ton of bricks, when I brought it to the light and said it out loud and told my husband, it's like a light switch went off. And I was like, whoa, like, this is not what I want. I don't want to do this. And it's not like everything switched that day, but I gradually started to find things to latch on to. And in fact, I found a quote randomly on Facebook, and I'm now obsessed. If anybody follows me, they'll see I'm obsessed with quotes. But I had to print it out like 8 by 10 and taped it to the side of my bed that literally was like, get out of bed. Take one step today. Get out of bed.
Right.
And when I weaned down all the drugs and I turned to meditation and I turned to forgiveness and I turned into myself, I began to heal faster than I ever thought I could.
Right. My dog is like, he clearly wants to participate. Archimedes, come here, honey. Why do you do this sometimes? He wants a bone, but I don't have one for him. Sorry, sir. We're having a really serious conversation. I wish that you could see him. Oh, wait. Can you? Oh, here he is. Here's the little that's causing trouble. Even this guy has had his own near-death experience. That's for another day. But I'm interested in hearing about this dark, right? Because it's just so fascinating to me that it seems it's like a common thing. Is like everyone has these moments where all of a sudden we're in the dark. It's like the light goes out and we're like, oh God, now what? And then the light comes on, and you're right. It's sort of like, it doesn't happen instantaneous. I mean, it depends on who you are. I had a bizarre experience. I got hit by a car. So when I got hit by the car, the lights did all come on. Like, I mean, for me, that was like a massive thing. But I had this, and I talk about this a lot. It was really interesting because the car hit me, and I was thinking suicidal thoughts. Like, I was thinking like along the lines of nobody would care if I wasn't here. Like, nobody would notice. Yeah. Nobody gives a hootenanny about me. These were the thoughts I was having right before I got hit. And it wasn't like I consciously stepped in front of the car, but I did kind of consciously know that there was a chance I could get hit. And I kind of was like, I don't necessarily know if it's a bad thing if it does hit me, because I'd like to get out of here. And instead of dying, which is what normal people do when they get hit by a car, like 25 miles an hour, I bounced in the street and I stood up. Like it was a really,
oh, wow.
yeah, it was a very otherworldly experience. But what happened was I was like looking at myself going like, oh my God, I'm here. I'm still here.
Yeah.
And I literally did have that wake up moment, but it still did take a really long time to get from that point. I mean, now I was 30 years old, I'm 37 and I'm still grasping and healing. And you're right. It's not something that you do kind of you go kind of like through an unpacking process, right?
Yeah, totally unpacking. Like, you have to unlearn a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. And so how can you encourage others as someone who's gone through this, right? And as someone who's had these experiences, who had a challenging past, which I would also argue to say that like maybe not 98% of us, but there is a huge majority of people that have experienced something. And another reason why I started doing this in the first place was because somebody brought to my attention the number of women that have been sexually assaulted or experienced sexual abuse. And I don't remember what the number was that she gave me, but I was like, that is appalling. And that is like a very, very, very huge percentage. And what shocked me about it was that I would guarantee you that for most of us, we're not even aware that what's happening is wrong until it's too late. Or not too late, but until it's much later. It's never too late, but it's definitely too late to stop it in that moment. You know, it took me until I got hit by that car and I started actually looking at my life going, oh my God, like all those things actually happened to me. And I had no awareness of it. Cause like you said, I just numbed it and I just like, was like, whatever, everything's cool. It's all right. That sort of stuff happens. No. And maybe that sort of stuff does. And I think that's kind of
things do happen. I mean, you can't control everything, but you can control how you react to it.
Right. And this awareness of like, okay, I think that these sort of challenging experiences are maybe more common than we realize. It happens to all of us, but that doesn't mean it's okay. And it doesn't mean you just go like, oh, well, you know what I mean? Like I was just like, oh, well, I got sexually assaulted. Oh, well, and I'm like, no, it's not. Oh, well, you had a challenging childhood, a father that, was drinking and you had experiences. That's not just, oh, well.
Yeah.
But it's also not like, oh, woe is me, my curse is on you. So how do you find the middle ground? Like what helped you to go from having this experience and having this near, almost near death, terrifying, traumatizing experience that put you in a hospital, in an ICU where you thought you were having a stroke, which is no small thing.
Oh, no.
Terrifying, I imagine.
Yeah.
To where you are now. Like, how did you begin that? And I know one step, but like, what are some of the steps that you took for people that are listening?
Well, for the first thing I did was just start journaling. That was before I did anything. It was journaling. And literally, like, I know this is going to sound cliche, but they say, when the student's ready, the teacher appears.
That's not cliche.
People started appearing in my Facebook newsfeed because, that's what I was doing. I was laying in bed all day crying, going through Facebook. And so all of a sudden I started seeing these things and I'm like, well, who's this? And the first person I really got introduced to was Gabby Bernstein. And, she's had alcohol. She was an alcoholic and drug addict herself, so her story was inspiring. And I just started picking up things slowly. So first it was journaling and then it was reading books. I developed this huge thirst for personal development because I was like, okay, I was the single mother for a long time. I've been married 3 times. I've had a traumatic childhood. Like I was like, I'm always good at picking myself up and fixing the problem. So my first instinct was to go get every book on the planet. So I'm seriously versed in probably every self-help author you can imagine because I was reading like a book every 2 days. I was just enveloping myself in this personal development. But what I was doing was I was highlighting and picking up things that I needed, and just taking it from there. And I kind of accidentally fell into a coach, literally like, it was like a money mindset program or something I totally didn't need. Right. And I was like, I don't know why, but I totally need to take this course. And I never even really knew about coaches back then or anything. I was like, well, okay. The cart closed at midnight. I signed up at 2 a.m. and somehow still got in. And in that whole 6-week process, not the money part of it, but the mindset, I was like, oh, like there's something to this. Like I've got to rewire my brain. Like I am something, I can fix this. Like this is not my fault. Like, and it's not our fault. It's like,
oh whoa. Yeah, there's that buzzword. There's that ding, 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 ding.
Like, I didn't create this. I can change this. And so that was like the next step for me. And with reading Gabby Bernstein and following her is when I really got introduced to meditation and started meditating. And at the beginning, it sucked. It was weird. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I didn't know, but I kept doing it and I kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. And, little did I know, now I remember things from a child, but I had gifts that were started to open up. I'm clairsentient. I'm clairvoyant. And I literally cried for 6 weeks straight at one point because I hadn't cried for 35 years, So it's literally, I hate to say it's one step at a time, but it's a lot of little, small, right actions. It's doing what felt good for me in the moment and getting severely present with what's happening right now in this second and not what happened in the past, because I still have moments. I had a moment a couple of days ago where I literally woke up and knew it was going to be a bad day. And I literally felt trapped in my head that my whatever wasn't going to work in the future because in the past it didn't. I was projecting it. And I literally was like in my head shaking the bars going, I got to stop this. I got to stop this. And I had that moment where I sat on my couch for 2 hours and was debating on whether or not I could take the little bit of money that was left on my credit card and go buy a bottle of wine and a pizza because I wanted the easy way out. And I sat there for 2 hours, I'm not kidding, and battled myself. And I had to stop and I said, what do you want right now? And it was peace.
Oh, it's always peace. It's always peace.
I wanted the peace and calm in my mind. And I said to myself, as I'm talking to myself, because I do this constantly, is where can you get peace right now? And for me, I'm connected to Mother Earth so much. For me, it's salt water. It's the ocean. And so I grabbed my son, we jumped in the truck and we went to the beach and I walked in the water and watched the sunset, came home at 45 minutes later and started cleaning my house because that's the quickest way for me to get in the present moment. And the next day I woke up and I felt great. But I could have easily slipped back into those old habits and gone back to the dark side and said, I'm just going to numb it out today because it's the quickest way. But guess what? I would have woke up and been like, I feel like crap. And my problem is still here. I didn't do anything.
Right.
So I just brought it to the light and I went and got happy and it went away.
Right.
But it took me a long time and a lot of practice to get good at that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and, there's so much in what you said that's really cool. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, also do this project is because we know the fundamental teachings, right? Like we understand from the darkness to the light, you've got to bring it from the unconscious to the conscious. And like, these are like terms,
Yeah.
This is like a math equation. It's like someone handing me, a math equation and saying it's X plus Y to the third power over Z equals peace. And you're like, yeah, but I don't know how to do that. Like, what does it mean?
Surrender. People are like, what is forever? I'm like, how the heck do you surrender? What does that even mean? How do you let go? And for me, it's like, that's what I needed to do. I needed to let go. I needed from an ex-control freak. I needed to let go and surrender.
Right.
And so my understanding and my best way to tell people to surrender, because I know there's still millions of people who want to know how the heck to do that, is like when you're trying to fix something and you're just like, you know what? forget it. I don't even care if it works. I don't care if it ever works again or fixes it. And you set down that screwdriver and you walk away. That's surrender. It's just giving, it's just giving up in that moment and saying, okay, whatever's supposed to happen right now is going to happen. And I'm going to go find something else to do because that's clearly not working right now.
Well, and it always, I have I actually have like the perfect story of that is, so I'm in I have these, a lot of times I receive these random things and I'm able to, something from the past, it just kind of, I'm able to have it just sort of like deleted, like it just goes away. And so I have a used car. I still owe a lot of money on it, and it's all beat up, it's valueless, all this stuff. And so I have an opportunity to trade it in, and they're going to just take it off my hands, forgive the loan and give me a new car. Now I have to pay for the new car, but I'm getting this new car. And I'm like, this is great. So yesterday I was I was overwhelmed and I have a lot of things going on. One of them was this project and I'm like, oh my God. And I just, I don't know how to start. And I was freaking out and I went to pull out of the driveway. Now I'm turning my car in tomorrow. I hit the stone wall with my car, busted the front bumper. And I'm like, oh my God, freaking out, all upset. So then I go, I know what, just like you, I go, okay, the one thing that helps me, I've got to go to this park. There's a tree. I sit at that tree and I relax. So I pull up, I'm like looking at the damage again. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I'm like, I can't do anything about it. I have to stop. And so this man comes over and he's like, what'd you do? He's Irish. And some people listening to this will know why the Irish is, because my teacher, my connection, I'm connected to Ireland. And so this guy shows up and he's like, what did you do? And I'm like, and he goes, you have to move that screw. And he sort of like touches the car and walks away. And he shows me that if I just undo that screw, I can put it back in and screw it back in and it's fixed. Yeah. So then I go, the screw is loose and I'm able to actually like put it back in and fix it. But it was like in that moment of just going, well, I'm going to just have to accept it as is. It's going to be fine. And then I could fix it. But there's so often, and it is a lot of, there's
blinding, the anger, the everything.
Well, it's kind of like the emotion just comes up and you're like, oh my God, I need to get out of this, or I need to fix this, or it's like this, I need. And it's like a panic. And so sometimes that happens in our own lives with it's almost like the stories, right? Like the dad.
Yeah.
The alcoholic father being like, I don't care how old I am. I just need to fix this. I just need to make sure that it's okay so that I can move on. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I so get it, because so often I'm still trying to fix what was broken from the past. And that doesn't work. You know what I mean? Because you can't, it's exactly what you're saying is you can't, I often think of the series Lost, right? It's like, I need to go back. It's like, well, you can get on the plane and you can go back, but you're not going to fix anything. Like, why don't you focus on the present? Exactly what you said. And that is surrendering.
It is. And the more you focus on the past, the more you're going to project it into your future. So if you're so worried about that, you're just going to repeat it. I mean, I did for years. I married the first two marriages, I married the same man twice. He just looked differently, right?
Right. Oh, yes.
And he was just like they both had, addictive tendencies and were, the same people. And it's that pattern. We keep focusing. And so that's all we're going to bring. So when we stay present in the moment, 5 minutes from now, you can make a decision that's going to change tomorrow forever, but you don't know that. You can't predict the future. So just worry about you're safe right now, what's going on right now, and how in this moment, get happy and change it.
Right.
I was thinking when you said what side of your body, and it was the receiving side, I spent my whole life giving. I took care of my siblings when I was little because my parents had checked out. Then I was the mom at 17, and I had a job and I had a family. I got married. I did all these things. I was always giving 120%. I wasn't receiving a damn thing at all, and till this day, I still have to do heart chakra work. I still have to do mirroring work. I still have to love myself, because that's the only person that matters, is me loving me. Right. Otherwise, I can't receive from anybody else. And that was the problem. I didn't love myself because I was so focused on everybody else.
Right. Right. And you've just like in that statement itself and this whole episode, there's like certain I'm kind of tracking the commonalities and the buzzwords, and it is always, you know, people saying like, I have to love myself. And it's like, okay, one thing I think that we've misunderstood is, what does that look like? And how do we do that? Another one is this: it's not my fault. You know, it's actually not my fault, because I think that's a common thing. And that was one of the breaking points for me, was when I began, when I realized how much responsibility I had taken for everybody's life going wrong.
Yeah.
And it was this weird, messed up, backwards formula where I thought, well, I'm strong.
You can carry it all on your back and your shoulders.
I can take it all for them because I know. And that's sort of this like weird, confused martyr / savior thing that we've always done, because, you know, there was a guy with his name starts with a J, who took it all because he was cool like that. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not judging that story, but it's a thing, a mindset that we have been taught, that there's a way to take on all the weight of the world.
Mm-hmm. That's so dangerous too. It's so dangerous for not only your mind, but your body and your heart. It's just, it's terrible. I did it for way too long, and we don't need to do that. Women tell me all the time they don't have time to take care of themselves. I said, you don't have time not to. Right. You just don't. I mean, easy. Take a 10-minute salt bath, meditate for 20 minutes, go for a walk, read, do whatever makes you happy, even if it's for 10 or 15 minutes a day. But if you're not happy, if you're not okay, and if you're not filling yourself up, what makes you think that you can give to everybody else? I mean, you're going to end up drained, sick, tired, exhausted, walking around like a zombie, feeling like crap. I mean, this is why you're irritable. This is why you're not happy. Right. So it's easy for me to say that from this point, but it's also easy for me to say that because I've been through it. I know I was that person.
You are allowed to say it. Well, then that's the thing, is you did live through it, and you have all these experiences. You have the arsenal of like if it was a math equation, I'd say you have all the data. You have the X, you have the Y, you have the Z. You put it all together, you have the outcome. Yeah, like it's. I think that in some ways it's a lot simpler than we've been making it. It's literally a math problem.
It is. It's so simple, but I think that's the thing, is people think it's too easy. It can't be that easy. Everybody expects that it has to be hard. We're conditioned and trained to believe that life is hard. Right. It's hard knocks, the school of hard knocks. It's just, that's life. Get over it. Bad things happen. No, it doesn't have to be that way. Right. You choose. It's your choice. It's the number one thing I tell people is, don't say I couldn't, I can't, I shouldn't. I choose. Take your power back and choose to do what you want to do. And F everybody else. Like, they're not the ones that are living, they're not in your body.
Right. And it's so easy to kind of allow all of this other stuff to kind of like, I said before to someone else, it's like we wear like a cloak, and it's like we have it on and we're like, I just don't like, it's safe. Yeah. In a way, it feels like it's familiar. And what I'm looking at is that time, like, it's time to take the cloak, the energetic cloak off, not just for me, not just for you, but for everyone. And that's that I could just as easily do this in my own closet and just with me. But I don't think that that's what we need now, is to see that across the board, this is the reality. This is the truth. And we all have a math problem. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. You have an X, you have a Y, you have a Z, and you have an outcome. And it's true. You said you wanted peace. That is actually the fundament. That is, at the end of the day, that's what we all want. That's what the soul wants. Once you get there, that's the ticket home. That's it.
You have to the dark and the obstacles and the things that we need to go through those. Maybe not as much as some of us have gone through. Like, we probably could have woken up a little sooner, but
too late, right? Oh, like,
it's done. But people think if you went through life and everything was simple and easy and beautiful, like, what is that? Like, you have to experience these obstacles and these bumps and these dark times to appreciate where we are now. Like, I think it's something that, I might be going a little off, but, I think we chose this. We chose the life that we want to live. And even, for a long time, I had a hard time grasping that. Like, why would I choose that? But I needed to go through this so that I could speak up and say, this is my story. It can be better. It can be different. We can be different people. We can heal each other. It's time to wake up now and see that we can focus on the outcome that we desire. Stop stressing about what happened back then and what was done. What do we want for our future? Right? Like today with the disaster going on in Texas and coming into Louisiana. Today, I put a post on my Facebook, which I usually stay out of politics. I usually stay out of all of it because it's just my choice. I'd rather spread light. But I put on there that my heart was breaking for these people. But what warmed me up was that it took sadly, it took a natural disaster, a catastrophic natural disaster by Mother Nature to have people of all kinds, all human races across the board, no matter their gender, color, anything, to come together and work together happily and kindly and with love and compassion. Why did it take that to do that? Why? Right. Why can't we just learn from all the other ones and say, listen, if we just focus on helping each other and loving each other and being compassionate, God, look how much better we work together. Look how much better the world is. Like, let's wake up. Wake up. Like, that's what it's all about right now.
Right. Yeah. There's tons and tons and tons of...
That's a whole nother episode.
It is a whole other thing, but it's not, because if you think about it, it actually... Everything always comes full circle. And you talked about numbing, right? You talked about how your father numbed himself with alcohol. You did the same thing. Your body went numb. It's actually not, because if you're asleep, you don't feel that. And if you don't feel that, you don't know you're in pain. If you don't know you're in pain, next thing you know, your arm's missing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So to me, it's not a different story. It's all the same. It's all part of the same story, because I'm looking at this from a fundamental way, looking at the systemic issues, right? Yeah. And why does it keep repeating, and what can we do? Because we all have these experiences. And what I found, at least for me, was, okay, you know what? Like, I can sit and I can try and reach like 20 people at a time, and I can create a program. But more importantly than that, I want to open it up so that people see that this sort of stuff that we're talking about is universal, because there's something in your story that resonates with everyone.
Yes.
Everybody knows what it feels like to take an emotion and to eat it. And these are universal themes. I hear women talk about this all the time. I put things in my body that didn't feel good.
Comfort
food, alcohol. Yeah. I allowed a person to mistreat me. I didn't speak up. I tried to save them. All of these things we're doing. And they're behaviors, but they're systemic behaviors. They're behaviors that live in the brainstem, that live in the mind, that we've had forever.
Yes.
And it goes all the way back to a very long time ago. And what I'm doing is I've got two sort of parallel stories running. We've got the women's stories, like the conversations we're having, and then interjected into those are episodes that I'm creating, where I'm just specifically speaking about the wisdom, the teachings, the belief systems. Where'd they come from? What do we do? So it's like the past and the future are coming together in these conversations. And we're about to wrap up. And I'm going to ask you in a second for, number one, where we can find you and we can follow you, and all that good stuff. And also any parting words of wisdom and guidance around this exact topic of, we know that we started somewhere. There might be some stuff that was not so pleasant. We know we want to get to the place where we're at peace, what's your wisdom or your inspiration for people in that space? Because I actually think that that's the more that people hear this, they're going to go, oh, that's actually what I want too. I didn't know it because it was in another language, but that's what we all want. So what can you offer for people that listen to this and go, yeah, but I don't know how to start, or I don't know what to do?
It's twofold, but I think, and this goes for history, this goes for what every woman or man is dealing with in this moment. The first thing we all have to do is forgive. Forgive ourselves, number one, because we're the ones that hold so much weight on our shoulders and our backs and feel like we are responsible for so much that really we're not. So radical forgiveness. You have to release and let go of that past and be okay with it. And I want to say this because I feel like I need to. It doesn't condone or say that it's okay for if somebody did something to you. And I'm going to say something I've never said it anywhere on any platform to anybody. Is I was sexually assaulted multiple times by somebody. And I didn't tell actually there was like 2 people that knew my life because I was so afraid of what would happen if I spoke up. Right. And so because that's a common thing of me being afraid to speak up and say something, it just dawned on me. But we have to forgive everybody and everything that's happened in the past. And then at that next moment, we can unlearn by forgiving, we can unlearn these things and rewire ourselves to allow the love in, to allow the light in, and to move forward until we heal from the past, from history, from everything. We can't move forward. You can't take that next step. You can't flood yourself with affirmations and positive quotes and all these things if you haven't done the work on the back end and healed yourself. And that goes for history. That goes for everything. So radical forgiveness. And once you get through that, then you can flood yourself with love and light and bring those positive affirmations in. All these negative thoughts that we have in our head, they're like pain in the body. They're a warning system telling you what you need to work on. So listen to it, observe it, and heal it. And then you can move forward and rewire yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's the basis. And people say that sounds so easy. It's not easy, but you can do it. You can. You have to take the first step and work through it. It's literally take the first step, take the first right action, and the next will follow, and the next will follow.
Right. And I like that you're saying right action, because that's one of the 5 values. We have love, truth, peace, nonviolence. You call it right conduct or right action.
Yeah.
And right action, as opposed to wrong action, makes a really big difference. That's not to say good and bad, but just right, meaning in the right direction.
Yes.
I always say it's towards yourself, not away from yourself. If you're moving away from yourself, that's the wrong direction.
Exactly.
And of course that the last 2 minutes, you drop that bomb on me. Like, oh, P.S. by the way. And thank you for saying that. And to me, that's no small feat that you would have it never would have occurred to you to actually say that. And right there is proof that this works.
Yes.
And is proof that this matters and that you matter and that your experiences matter. Because the fact that you had that and it never occurred to you that you had the ability or the right to say that happened to you, that's a big problem for me.
It is. And but this is the whole thing. By me speaking my truth, I'm going to continue to heal and learn from my own journey. Same with you. And by you bringing your light and having all these people come on, you're doing the same thing for all these people, and everybody hearing it. Something's going to click for somebody. They're going to be like, whoa, And so this is what we do. We have to tell our stories. We have to say, hey, this is what happened. Do you resonate with it? It's okay. I can help you. It's okay to speak up. It's okay to tell your story. It's okay that you're not perfect.
Right. What? I'm not perfect. Oh,
I know.
Are you kidding me? People can't see my, if there's a video, you can see my face. You can see my face throughout this whole thing. And yes, thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's so true. And I think that more importantly than anything, it's the story. It's like, just for some reason that was like missing in the equation. And before I have you tell us where we can find you, I thought about this and I thought about, okay, so how did the Greeks and the Romans teach? How did they deliver? How did the Mayans deliver this information? How did the Egyptians do this, right? They had stories, plays.
Yeah, they wrote them on the walls.
They wrote them on the walls. They made art.
Mm-hmm.
They expressed it. That's what all that stuff is.
Yeah.
The plays, the stories, the
rituals, the dances.
The rituals, everything was just storytelling once upon a time.
Yes.
And the teaching of that and the healing of it and the witnessing of the story in itself. So thank you for sharing all of that, because it's not just your story. It's the actual, there's a journey and there's a healing that occurs. And by just sharing it, it makes a massive, profound difference. So thank you for sharing all of it. I'm so grateful. And I hope everybody's enjoyed this thoroughly, and follow her and tell us where we can find you.
So you can find me at johannaburkhardt.com, or you can find me on Facebook at Spiritually Empowering Women, because that's what I do.
Great. Yeah. Awesome. So follow her, check all that stuff out. That'll all be linked underneath the episode as well at the website. And you know that I am a massive, massive proponent of continuing the conversation. So if you've listened to this and you're like, yes, I want to respond. Yes, I want to reach out. I want to say something. Keep the conversation going at womenarising.org. Share your story. Let us know how this resonates with you, what this lit up within you. This is a round table. This is an open discussion. So thank you so much for listening, everybody. And as I always say, let love be your sword and truth your mission. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening and joining us for Women Are Rising with Katie Kozlowski. If you love the conversation and you want to join us for more, come check us out at womenarising.org and jump on our mailing list, grab yourself a free meditation, and join the Women Are Rising family. We can't wait to hear your war story at womenarising.org.